They rescued a human in the past. Years later, a massive fleet came in response, HFY Sci-Fi Story. The stars above the Vierland system shimmered like distant fireflies in the cold darkness of space. Among them, a small human ship drifted, its hull scratched and battered, lights flickering in warning. The ship's distress beacon sent out pulses of energy across the void, hoping, praying for someone, anyone to respond. On the bridge of the Vierland vessel Astralis, Commander Kale stood with his hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the monitor that displayed the human ship's emergency signal. Kale was young by Vierland standards, ambitious and curious, but not reckless. Still, his heart stirred at the thought of intervening. "Commander," Lieutenant Sierra's calm voice broke the silence, "the ship belongs to humans. Records suggest they are fragile. Engaging may be dangerous." Kale nodded slowly. "I know, but no life is expendable." "We cannot ignore a distress call, Sierra. Prepare the rescue team. We go in." The decision was met with murmurs of concern from the crew. Humans were known to be unpredictable. Their technology was primitive in some ways and dangerously clever in others. Many in the Vierland Council preferred to avoid contact, seeing humans as, well, curiosities at best. But Kale had always believed in action. The Astralis moved carefully toward the nebula where the human ship floated. Thick clouds of cosmic dust obscured sensors and made navigation tricky. The ship shuddered under gravitational turbulence, and alarms blared intermittently. "Approaching the vessel now," said Sierra. "Energy readings are unstable. Hull integrity at 20%. Kale clenched his jaw. "Then we must hurry." In the small human vessel, Commander Elias Ward leaned over the controls, his brow furrowed. The ship's engines had failed, and the automated repair systems were struggling against the nebula's strange particles. He had seen trouble before, skirmishes with pirates, asteroid collisions, but this was different. The nebula was alive in some way, shifting, twisting, almost as if it were trying to trap him. "Come on, old girl," Elias whispered, patting the console. "We've got to hold together just a little longer." A flicker of light caught his eye. On the main screen, a vessel appeared, a sleek, elegant ship unlike anything in his charts. Its lines were sharp, its engines glowing with quiet power. Relief and disbelief mixed in his chest. Humans rarely saw another intelligent race this far from Earth. "Thank the stars," Elias muttered. Back on the Astralis, Kale coordinated the rescue. The human ship floated dangerously close to a magnetic storm forming inside the nebula. Any wrong move could crush it or tear it apart. "Deploy the tractor beams," Kale ordered. "Synchronize with my timing. We have one shot at this." The rescue team moved with precision. Lights flashed, energy streams arced across space, and the tractor beams latched onto the human vessel. For a moment, everything hung in balance. The nebula's turbulence threatened to tear the human ship away, but Kale's crew adjusted their hold with exacting skill. Inside the human ship, Elias felt a sudden pull, gentle but firm. The vessel began to move, guided not by his failing engines but by something strong and reliable. Relief washed over him. "They're saving us," he whispered. Minutes felt like hours as the Astralis navigated the nebula's shifting currents. Kale's mind was sharp, calculating every angle, anticipating every shift in the cosmic storm. His officers followed without question, each trusting his judgment completely. Finally, the nebula's edge came into view, a vast field of calm stars beyond the swirling dust. Kale guided the human ship into safe space. The tension on the bridge eased, but Kale did not allow himself to relax completely. "Good work," he said softly. "Status report." "All systems stable," Sierra replied. "Human vessel intact. No further immediate danger." Kale exhaled, a rare smile breaking across his face. "Then we have succeeded. Now let us meet this human." Elias was escorted onto the Astralis via a small transport chamber. He stepped off the transporter with caution, studying the Vierlands carefully. Their forms were elegant, elongated, and strikingly symmetrical, with skin that shimmered faintly in the soft light of the ship. Their eyes, large, intelligent, and unblinking, studied him in return. Kale approached him. "Commander Ward, I am Kale of the Vireland Collective. You are safe now." Elias gave a small bow, his military habit ingrained from years of service. "Thank you, Commander Kale. I don't know how to repay you." Kale shook his head. "No repayment is necessary. We do not leave lives to chance. Tell me, human, how did you survive the nebula?" Elias smiled faintly, the kind of smile born from exhaustion and relief. "Adaptation, observation, and maybe a little luck. I kept the ship balanced, listened to the sensors, and adjusted constantly. It was like dancing with a storm." The Virelands listened carefully. They were fascinated. Humans, it seemed, were unpredictable, yes, but in ways that were ingenious and inspiring. Elia's calm, his ability to stay focused under pressure, impressed them. Kale motioned to a console. "Show us your vessel's logs. We want to understand how your species approaches such danger." As Elias worked, he explained each decision he had made during the rescue, how he navigated the nebula, how he conserved energy, and how he predicted the nebula's shifts. The Virelands absorbed every detail, their minds racing with new concepts, new ways of thinking about problem-solving. Hours passed, though the Virelands experienced time differently. By the time the discussion ended, Kale knew something important. Humans were not merely fragile creatures. They were capable of brilliance, resourcefulness, and courage. "I must admit," Kale said, "your species has more potential than many believe." Elias chuckled, a tired but genuine sound. "Thanks, that's nice to hear. We've had to adapt. Space doesn't forgive mistakes, and Earth, well, it teaches resilience." There was a quiet pause. The rescue had been successful, but Kale felt a subtle weight on his conscience. He could not explain why, but he sensed that this human would be significant, not just for their survival, but for something far larger. "Before you leave," Kale said, "there is one small gesture. We will send a message into deep space, a record of your rescue. It may matter one day." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Really? You think anyone will see it?" Kale's eyes glinted. "Perhaps not soon, perhaps not even in our lifetime, but actions echo. You may find that kindness and courage have consequences you cannot yet imagine." Elias smiled again, feeling a strange warmth at the Vireland's words. "Then let's hope the echo is a good one." As the human vessel prepared to depart, Kale watched it leave, faster and smaller among the stars. The Astralis returned to its patrol, but Kale's mind remained on the human. There was something remarkable about them, something the Virelands could not yet name. Somewhere in the galaxy, a seed had been planted. A seed of respect, curiosity, and perhaps, if time allowed, a lasting bond between two very different species. And in that moment the Virelands began to understand one small truth. Sometimes, saving a life was not just an act of duty. It was an investment in the future. The stars outside shone silently, indifferent to the drama beneath them. Yet within the vastness of space, connections were being forged, and destinies quietly entwined. Years passed quietly in the Vireland system. The nebula where Commander Elias Ward had once been trapped had faded into distant memory for most, a minor blip in the endless patterns of the stars. But for Commander Kale, it remained vivid. He often thought of the human they had rescued, a species so small and seemingly fragile, yet so remarkable. Time moved differently for the Virelands. They were patient, deliberate, careful. They measured years not by events, but by patterns, by changes in energy flows and cosmic phenomena. Yet even for them, the past 7 years had brought subtle changes that did not go unnoticed. On the bridge of the Astralis, now refitted with new technology, Kale observed the fleet as it patrolled the outer rim. His officers moved with quiet efficiency, but their conversation often returned to humans. "Kale," Sierra said one morning, her voice tinged with curiosity, Do you think that human, Elias Ward, influenced anything in the galaxy? Kale's eyes were fixed on a distant star cluster. Influence is hard to measure, Sierra. But the way he handled danger, the way he acted without fear, with intelligence and calm, I believe he left a mark, not just on us but perhaps on his own species. Sierra tilted her head. Do you mean the humans are improving? Kale nodded slowly. I think they are more capable than we realized. Give them time and they may surprise us. Meanwhile, far from the Virulence system, humans were indeed changing. Elias Ward had returned to Earth a hero of his own fleet. Stories of the rescue circulated, not just among humans but in interstellar logs monitored by the Council of Allied Species. Elias had risen through the ranks, known for his calm leadership, his strategic thinking, and his unwavering belief in cooperation. He had often spoken of the Vireland's rescue, not with pride but with gratitude and reflection. The galaxy is larger than we imagine, he would tell young cadets, and our actions have consequences beyond what we can see. Treat others with respect, even if they are different. You never know when it may matter. As the years rolled on, humans expanded their reach. Exploration missions were launched to distant star systems. Science teams experimented with new technologies, inspired by fragments of alien knowledge gleaned from rare encounters. Humans were growing, not aggressively, but intelligently, cautiously, and always with curiosity. Back in the Virulence system, Kale began to notice strange readings on the outer sensors of their patrol routes. Unusual energy patterns, small but distinct like a signal being repeated. Commander, Sierra reported one evening, we are picking up repeating transmissions from an unknown source. It is faint, but it seems deliberate. Could it be related to the humans? Kale leaned forward. He had thought little of the rescue beyond admiration until now. Perhaps, he said, or it could be a coincidence, but prepare for all possibilities, record everything. We cannot underestimate this species, no matter how small they may appear. The Virulence had not interfered in human development, choosing observation over contact. But the echoes of that single rescue, an act of compassion, had reached farther than they realized. The signal they detected was a trace of humanity's expanding presence, a small ripple that hinted at something greater. Across the galaxy, Elias Ward worked tirelessly. His fleet had grown from a handful of vessels to a small armada, not for conquest, but for exploration and aid. Humans remembered their own history, the times they had struggled and survived, and they sought to offer help wherever it was needed. Every mission carried the silent memory of the Vireland's rescue. Elias had instructed his teams to log acts of assistance, encounters where beings of other species had extended a hand, helped, or saved a human life. He called it the record of gratitude. It was meticulous, detailed, and at times almost impossible to maintain across the vast distances of space. Yet the humans persisted. The Virelands remained unaware of the scale of this effort. They continued their patrols, noting only subtle anomalies in the energy readings of deep space. Kale often studied the signals at night, pondering their meaning. One day, Sierra approached him with an unusual report. Commander, the signal is changing. It is stronger now, more structured. It seems directed toward us. Kale studied the readings. His mind, always analytical, raced through possibilities. Could this be a human attempt at communication, or perhaps something unintended, a byproduct of their technology? We must prepare for contact, Kale said finally, but cautiously. We cannot assume intent, and yet we cannot ignore it. Weeks passed. The signal grew clearer, pulsing rhythmically. The Vireland studied it carefully, decoding patterns and frequencies. They found an unmistakable trace of human design, intelligent, organized, deliberate. Kale called a meeting of the senior officers. The species we once rescued, they are reaching out, not in hostility but something else. Perhaps acknowledgement, perhaps curiosity. Perhaps gratitude. The concept intrigued the Virelands. It had been centuries since they had seen any species respond to their actions with such consideration. The idea that a small act could ripple through time, grow, and return with force, it was new to them. Far beyond the Vireland borders, the human fleet had grown to impressive size. Thousands of ships, equipped with exploration modules, science teams, and emergency response units, moved in a slow but deliberate formation across the stars. Each ship carried the memory of those who had helped humans in the past. Each captain knew that the galaxy was full of beings who could be friends or allies if approached with care and respect. Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the flagship Horizon, observing the stars with the same calm focus he had displayed years ago in the nebula. "This is not about power," he said to his officers. "It is about acknowledgement, respect, connection. And we must act with precision, intelligence, and honor." The human fleet continued its journey, a silent promise that those who had once saved a human life would never be forgotten. Meanwhile, Kale and his officers grew more anxious and excited. The signals were now unmistakable. They were no longer faint pulses. They were patterns, deliberate sequences that suggested a vast presence approaching their space. "The humans," Kale murmured. "They are coming." Sierra's eyes widened. "How large do you think?" Kale did not answer immediately. He had spent years studying humans, observing their growth and ingenuity. He had anticipated development, but nothing in Vireland history had prepared him for what was about to arrive. Days later, the sensors detected the first ships of the human fleet, small at first but numerous. Then more and more, until the full extent of the armada became clear. Thousands of ships, moving in perfect formation, advanced with speed and precision. The Virelands watched in awe. Not a single ship acted recklessly. Every movement was coordinated, every maneuver calculated. This was not an invasion. It was a display of intelligence, of discipline, and of recognition. Kale realized something profound. The human we saved, they did not just survive. They have multiplied their abilities, their knowledge, and their capacity for cooperation. And now, they are honoring us. The fleet approached cautiously, maintaining distance but signaling readiness for communication. Holographic beacons flickered to life across the Vireland system, displaying symbols of peace and acknowledgement. Kale stepped forward. "Prepare the primary channel," he ordered. "We are about to meet a species in full bloom, a species that has learned the value of life, respect, and gratitude." The Virelands felt a mixture of anticipation, awe, and a strange warmth they had not expected. Years of observation, patience, and calculation had led to this moment. And yet, the galaxy still held mysteries beyond their understanding. The signal from the human fleet pulsed again, clearer and stronger, carrying not just information, but a message that resonated deeply. "We remember. We honor. We come in friendship." Kale allowed himself a rare smile. The rescue they had performed years ago, their small act of courage, had grown into something far larger than they could have imagined. Somewhere in the stars, the ripple of kindness had returned, not as a wave of conquest or dominance, but as a fleet of friendship, respect, and potential. And the Virelands realized they were about to witness something extraordinary. As the human armada moved closer, Kale felt an unusual mix of curiosity and excitement. He had always believed in observation and patience, but now he sensed that the universe had a way of rewarding those who acted with courage, intelligence, and honor. And so the Virelands waited. They waited for the humans to arrive. They waited for answers. And most importantly, they waited to understand what it truly meant to have a species recognize, respect, and return a favor across the vastness of space. The stars outside remained quiet, but within that quiet, history was in motion. And for the Virelands, the galaxy would never feel the same again. The Vireland system had never been so still, yet so alive. Outside the command deck of the Astralis, The stars sparkled normally, but the sensors were alive with activity. Hundreds, then thousands of signals from the approaching human fleet filled the monitors. Commander Kale stood at the front of the bridge, his posture calm, but his mind raced. He had seen signals before, strange ones, faint and mysterious, but nothing had prepared him for this. The fleet was enormous. Thousands of ships, from small exploration vessels to massive carriers, moved in perfect formation, a testament to discipline, strategy, and intelligence. Lieutenant Sierra stepped beside him. "They are larger than we expected. Their formation is precise. It is almost beautiful." Kale allowed himself a small nod. "Humans are more than capable. We always underestimated them. Now we see what they have become." The first human ship reached the outer border of Vireland space and halted. A holographic beacon flickered into existence above the ship, projecting symbols the Virelands had never seen. "Primary communication channel open," Sierra announced. Kale pressed a console button. "Establish connection," he ordered. A holographic figure appeared in the middle of the bridge. It was Elias Ward, older now, grayer around the edges, but with the same calm, intelligent presence Kale remembered from years ago. He smiled, and his eyes held the same quiet confidence. "Greetings, Commander Kale," Elias said, his voice calm and respectful. "I am Elias Ward, representing the human fleet. We come in friendship, recognition, and gratitude. Years ago you saved my life. Today we return that gesture in kind." The Virelands were silent. The entire bridge seemed to hold its collective breath. Elias continued. "Our species has grown since that day. We have learned, observed, and explored. We have documented every act of assistance we received from other civilizations. Your help was noted, remembered, and honored." Kale felt something stir inside him, a rare emotion among the Virelands. "Oh, you have grown remarkably," he said. "We did not expect such scale or such precision." Elias smiled. "We humans often surprise. Our survival depends on observation, adaptation, and cooperation. Those same skills guide our fleet today." Outside, the human ships moved in closer, maintaining perfect formation. They carried no weapons of aggression, only modules of exploration, medical aid, and communication arrays. The message was clear. These were not conquerors. These were allies. Kale turned to his officers. "Prepare the welcome protocols. They are not here to fight, but we must respond with respect." The human fleet paused at the edge of the Vireland system. Then, with careful precision, smaller ships moved forward, docking at the designated reception zones. Transporters activated, and humans began to arrive in Vireland space. Elias stepped through the transport chamber, walking calmly onto the Vireland homeworld platform. Kale met him halfway, and for the first time the two species looked each other over not as strangers but as equals. "You honor us," Kale said, his voice steady but sincere. "I did not expect this." Elias shook his head. "It was not expected." But acts of kindness and courage are not forgotten. They grow quietly and eventually return. This fleet represents every human who has survived because of the help of others, every being who gave us a chance. And today, we return that chance. The Virelands studied the humans. They were small, fragile in appearance, yet their posture and calm confidence radiated a quiet strength. Their eyes held curiosity, intelligence, and patience. It was not the strength of destruction, but the strength of persistence, adaptability, and respect. Kale motioned to the bridge. "We wish to show you our home, our systems, and our technology. There is much to learn from each other." Elias nodded. "And we wish to share what we have learned as well. Together, we may explore farther than either species could alone." The Virelands had prepared a demonstration. A section of their energy grid, previously unstable, was ready to be stabilized with human technology. Elias activated a small device from the human flagship. Streams of energy flowed across the grid, connecting circuits, stabilizing turbulence, and reinforcing the system. The Virelens watched, fascinated. The human solution was simple, elegant, and effective. Kale allowed himself a small smile. "You do not merely survive," he said. "You improve, you adapt, you solve. And you honor those who help you." Elias bowed slightly. "That is how we move forward, together. Respect, knowledge, cooperation, these are the tools that allow life to flourish across the stars." The Virelens began to welcome the humans into their society. Scientists exchanged data. Engineers collaborated on projects. Explorers shared maps of distant systems. The human fleet did not overwhelm. They worked patiently, efficiently, and with genuine interest in learning and giving. In the days that followed, Kale and Elias walked together on the observation deck of the Virelens space station. They watched smaller human ships and Virelen vessels move side by side, exploring nearby systems, responding to cosmic storms and sharing discoveries. "You've grown faster than I imagined," Kale said, his gaze fixed on the stars. "In just a few years, your species has expanded, learned, and matured." Elias smiled. "Growth comes from necessity, observation, and the drive to survive. But growth is also about respect. We remember those who helped us. Your actions created ripples that reached across years, guiding decisions, inspiring progress, and ultimately returning in ways we could not have imagined at the time." Kale nodded. "I never thought saving one life could lead to this. Your species is remarkable. Perhaps in time the galaxy will see it too." The two men stood in silence, watching the stars, aware that the universe was far larger than either of them had known. Yet now, instead of isolation or fear, there was connection. Instead of doubt, there was trust. The Virelens began to understand what humans had always shown in subtle ways: courage, intelligence, adaptability, and respect for life. It was not brute strength or technological superiority that defined humanity, but the ability to act wisely, to observe carefully, and to honor promises. Weeks turned into months. Joint missions were planned. Dangerous systems that had been avoided for decades were explored together. The Virelens learned new ways to stabilize energy grids, to predict cosmic phenomena, and to communicate over vast distances, all from human innovation. Humans, in turn, learned Virelen technology, strategies, and the value of patient observation. The galaxy, vast and endless, had shifted in subtle ways. A single act of courage, the rescue of one human in a dangerous nebula, had grown into a partnership that neither species could have predicted. And yet, it felt natural, inevitable even, that the universe had led them to this moment. One evening, Kale and Elias stood side by side on the observation deck, looking toward the distant stars. Elias gestured to the fleet moving through the system. "Every ship out there carries a memory. Every mission, every act of exploration, every gesture of goodwill, it all started with your choice to help me survive." Kale nodded slowly, feeling the weight of truth in those words. "Then we see now that courage and compassion are not wasted. They grow quietly until they become something greater. Perhaps this is the lesson we were meant to learn." Elias smiled. "It is the lesson we hope the galaxy will learn too." Above them, the stars twinkled silently, yet they seemed brighter somehow, reflecting not only light but the connections forged between lives, species, and the endless potential of cooperation. The human fleet remained in orbit, a quiet but powerful presence, not as conquerors but as partners, explorers, and friends. They brought hope, knowledge, and the promise that acts of courage, kindness, and ingenuity could echo through time and space. Kale turned to his officers. "Prepare for continued collaboration. The universe is vast and there is much to explore, but now we do it together." And so, humanity and the Virelens began a new chapter, side by side. A chapter written not in violence or conquest, but in curiosity, intelligence, and respect. A chapter that would shape the galaxy in ways no one could yet predict. From a small act of rescue in a distant nebula, The galaxy had learned a powerful truth. When life is saved, when kindness is shown, when courage meets wisdom, the universe responds in kind. And humanity, unpredictable, fragile, yet astonishingly clever, had returned, not with dominance but with friendship, knowledge, and a promise that those who help others are never forgotten. The stars above continued to shine, but now among them the echo of one brave human, and the Virelans who saved him, moved quietly, powerfully, and endlessly through the cosmos.